I want you to take a second and think about a time when you were absolutely 100% certain about something.
Oh, yeah, where you would have bet your entire life savings on it.
Exactly. You felt that absolute conviction just like vibrating in your bones.
Right.
And then, maybe hours or even years later, you found out you were completely undeniably wrong. Remember that feeling?
It's awful. That sudden drop in your stomach.
Yeah, the intense disorientation. And almost everyone listening has experienced that exact humbling moment.
Oh, absolutely.
But the thing that makes that experience so incredibly strange to think about is that certainty is, well, it's one of the strongest, most visceral feelings the human mind can produce. And yet, certainty and truth are not the same thing.
No, they really aren't.
In fact, as we're going to explore today, they are often entirely unrelated.
It is a profoundly unsettling realization when you first confront it, you know? You inherently trust your own mind. We all do.
Right, you have to.
But the reality of how that mind operates under the hood
Right.
is it's fundamentally different from the smooth, seamless narrative you experience on a daily basis.
And that gap between perception and reality is the focus of our deep dive today.
Yeah.
We're pulling from this incredibly thought-provoking excerpted discussion titled The Mind That Lies to Itself. And the sources we're working with here, they weave together neuroscience, evolutionary biology, cognitive psychology.
It's a lot of ground to cover.
It is. But they use all of it to paint a picture of the human brain that is honestly a little bit terrifying once you see the mechanics of it.
Yeah, it really is.
So our mission today is to figure out why our brains are biologically wired to deceive us. We'll look at why certainty is essentially a neurological illusion.
Right.
And most importantly, how you can build a mental immune system to protect yourself against your own biology. Okay, let's unpack this. Where do we even begin to understand the mechanics of a brain that actively lies to its owner?
Well, what's fascinating here is that to understand the modern brain, you have to completely discard the way we usually think about intelligence.
Okay, how so?
We tend to think of the human brain as this, ultimate truth-seeking machine, right? A biological supercomputer designed to perfectly map reality.
Sure, that's the standard view.
But the brain was never actually designed to know everything.
Yeah.
It was designed to do exactly one thing, which is make rapid decisions that kept our ancestors alive long enough to reproduce.
Wow, okay. Because for the vast majority of human history, like out on the savannah, hesitation was basically a death sentence.
Exactly. We did not have the luxury of sitting around philosophizing about the objective truth of, a rustling bush.
Right. You can't just pause and say, I wonder what the empirical data suggests.
The source text gives a really vivid illustration of this evolutionary context. Imagine one of our ancient ancestors standing in tall grass, and suddenly a shadow moves in their periphery.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
In that fraction of a second, they have a choice. They can wait for perfect evidence. They can stand there, gather data, and try to figure out if it's just the wind, a harmless animal, or a lethal predator.
But waiting for that perfect evidence is incredibly dangerous.
It is mathematically safer to just assume the worst.
Because the cost of being wrong in that scenario is wildly asymmetrical, right?
Right.
If you guess that the shadow is a lion and you run away, but it was actually just the wind, well, the penalty is minuscule. You wasted a little bit of energy sprinting to a tree.
Yeah, you feel a bit silly.
Your heart is pounding, but you're still breathing.
You wasted a few calories, which you can easily recover.
Yeah.
But consider the alternative.
Right, if you guess wrong the other way.
Exactly. If you guess that it's just the wind, and it actually is a lion, well, you are removed from the gene pool entirely.
Game over.
Game over.
Shish.
So guessing wrong on the side of caution meant wasting energy. But guessing wrong on the side of optimism meant extinction.
Yeah.
Over thousands and thousands of generations, evolution relentlessly shaped a brain that heavily prioritizes fast answers over complete answers.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, the neurological shortcuts we use every day, they were forged as survival tools, not truth detectors.
I look at it like a hypersensitive smoke detector.
Well, that's a good way to frame it.
Like, if you're installing a smoke alarm in your house, you intentionally engineer it to give you false alarms.
Right, you want it to go off easily.
Yeah, you want it screaming at you when you just burn some toast. Because the alternative, a smoke detector that waits until your entire kitchen is engulfed in literal flames, just to be absolutely certain there's a fire.
Is a catastrophic failure.
Exactly. Evolution gave us a hypersensitive smoke detector for a brain.
And that instinct for rapid conclusions is the entire foundation of human survival.
Right.
But the problem we face today is that we mistakenly view this rapid confidence as accuracy. We feel that quick, instinctual certainty in our chests, and we just assume it means we've grasped the objective truth of a situation.
Which brings us to the modern day. Because if our brains are still running on this ancient survival software, how does this fast answer instinct actually manipulate our day-to-day thinking?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because we aren't running from lions in tall grass anymore. We're, sitting in boardrooms, we're scrolling through algorithmic feeds, we're debating complex socioeconomic policies.
Right, the environment has changed completely, and the translation from ancient survival instinct to modern psychological trap happens through what cognitive scientists call heuristics, or cognitive biases.
Biases.
Yeah, decades of research have demonstrated that these biases dictate almost everything about how we interact with information. They act as these invisible filters.
Just constantly running in the background.
Exactly. Determining what we notice, what we ignore, and ultimately what we choose to believe. And the source material highlights one of the most powerful filters of all confirmation bias.
Now, I really want to dig into the actual mechanics of confirmation bias because, it's thrown around as a buzzword all the time.
It really is.
But the text frames it as us literally becoming editors of reality. Like, we're sitting in the editing bay of our own minds, leaving contradictory evidence on the cutting room floor.
That's a great analogy, and the mechanics of it are deeply rooted in energy conservation.
How so?
Well, once we hold a belief, our minds automatically search for information that supports it. Evidence that agrees with our pre-existing worldview feels incredibly convincing.
Because it's easy to digest.
Right, it's processed smoothly, but evidence that challenges us requires work to process. You have to remember, the brain is an incredibly energy-hungry organ.
Oh, I've read about this.
Yeah, it makes up about 2% of our body weight, but it consumes roughly 20% of our daily calories.
That is wild. 2% of the weight, 20% of the power.
Exactly. So its default mode is always to conserve energy by following familiar, established neural pathways.
So blazing a completely new neural pathway or like restructuring a foundational belief about how the world works that demands a massive spike in biological energy.
And the brain will do almost anything to avoid that spike.
Yeah.
When we encounter information that contradicts our beliefs, the source text points to a specific region of the brain. It's called the anterior cingulate cortex, or the ACC.
The ACC, got it.
This area serves as the brain's error detection and conflict monitoring center. So when you're presented with evidence that threatens a deeply held belief, the ACC lights up.
It sounds the alarm.
Yes, and in brain scans, this activation looks remarkably similar to the way the brain registers physical pain.
Wait, really? Physical pain?
Literal pain. It triggers a stress response in the body.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because of that physiological stress, the brain has to find a way to make the pain stop, right?
Yep.
And the most logical, rational way to turn off the alarm would be to evaluate the new evidence, do the exhausting work of updating your belief system, and adapt to reality.
That would be the rational thing, yes.
But the most energy-efficient way to resolve the discomfort is just to blind yourself to the evidence entirely.
It's exactly. To resolve the physical stress of cognitive dissonance, the brain simply rejects the new information.
Wow.
It rationalizes it away, it attacks the credibility of the source, or it just ignores it completely.
But wait, if the brain goes to such extreme, physically painful lengths to protect its existing beliefs and avoid learning anything that contradicts them, why do humans ever willingly learn anything new?
That is a very fair question.
If we're just these energy-saving machines that hate being proven wrong, we should have just stayed in caves forever.
Well, that tension is the defining paradox of human intelligence.
There.
Because we also have an opposing biological drive for novelty and curiosity,
Oh, okay.
which is managed by the dopamine system. Learning a new skill or discovering a new environment provides a chemical reward. We get a hit of dopamine.
Well, we do like new things.
We do. But the friction occurs when new information threatens a core belief, something deeply tied to our identity or our social group.
Right, that's when it hurts.
Exactly. When the brain detects a threat to our identity, the anterior cingulate cortex overrides the curiosity reward system. We are happy to learn new things, as long as those things don't force us to admit that our previous foundational understanding of the world was a lie.
So when someone, refuses to change their mind in an argument, even when they are staring at absolute undeniable proof that they're incorrect, we tend to view that as a moral failing.
Oh, all the time.
We call them stubborn or arrogant or just delusional. But according to the neuroscience here, it is strictly biological self-defense.
It is the exact same mechanism that kept our ancestors alive.
That's wild.
The brain is protecting itself from the energetic cost and the literal physical discomfort of being wrong. It makes it incredibly difficult for us to change our minds in a complex modern society where the threats aren't predators anymore.
Right, they're just opposing viewpoints or new data sets.
Exactly.
But if the brain actively edits present information to avoid discomfort, it naturally follows that it's also messing with our past, right? And vastly exaggerating our grasp on the present.
Yes. The text breaks down two specific cognitive flaws that really illustrate just how much our brains fabricate our sense of reality.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is called the illusion of understanding. We all walk around believing we understand the complex systems that govern our lives.
Well, the classic example from the text is the bicycle or the zipper, right?
Yes, the zipper is perfect.
Like, you ask someone if they know how a zipper works, and they say, yes, obviously I know how a zipper works.
Right.
But if you hand them a piece of paper and ask them to draw the exact mechanical mechanism of how the interlocking teeth actually function, they realize they have absolutely no idea.
Not at all.
They just have this vague, fuzzy concept of a zipper.
And the zipper is the classic baseline, but scale that illusion up to modern society.
Oh, boy.
People feel absolute, unshakable certainty about macroeconomic policy, the mechanics of artificial intelligence, global supply chains.
Totally.
Yet, if forced to explain step by step how a specific tariff impacts a secondary market, the illusion shatters.
It falls apart instantly.
Because we operate on shallow, superficial knowledge. But our brains grant us the feeling of deep expertise. It saves us the time of actually investigating every single thing we encounter.
We confuse familiarity with understanding.
Precise.
And the second flaw the text brings up is even more unsettling, I think, because it strikes at the core of who we are, our memory.
Yeah, this one is tough to swallow.
Because most of us imagine memory as a video recording stored on a hard drive somewhere in the temporal lobe, you know?
Like a file you just open up.
Right. You want to remember your 10th birthday, you just double-click the file and you watch the video playback.
But neuroscience reveals something entirely different. Memory is not a recording at all. It is a live reconstruction.
Okay, explain that.
The process is called synaptic reconsolidation. Every single time you access a memory, you are not playing back a static file.
Right.
You are pulling the memory out of storage, rendering it in real time, and then putting it back. And when you put it back, it is vulnerable to being altered.
So, what does this all mean? It basically means your memory is a lifelong game of telephone that you're playing with your own brain.
That's exactly what it is. You experience the event, and that is the original message.
Okay.
But every time you pull that memory up, the message gets passed along, and it gets slightly distorted.
Just a little bit at a time.
Small details shift based on your current mood. Emotions color the rendering. And crucially, new information you've learned since the event subtly overwrites the old memory.
So eventually, you aren't really remembering the original event, you're just remembering the last time you remembered it.
Yes.
The narrative, like the story you tell yourself about what happened to justify who you are today, becomes much more important to your biology than the factual reality of the past.
The brain continuously shapes the past to fit the present.
Okay, taking a step back and looking at the landscape we've just laid out, our brains prioritize fast answers over true ones.
Yes.
We experience literal physical stress when our core beliefs are challenged. We reject contradictory evidence to save biological energy. We suffer from massive illusions about our own intelligence, and our memories are just distorted stories constantly being rewritten.
It's a lot.
I have to admit, this sounds incredibly bleak.
It does.
If we are biologically trapped in a closed loop of self-deception, how has humanity ever managed to find the objective truth about anything? Like, how did we split the atom, build airplanes, or eradicate diseases if the human brain is this inherently flawed?
That is the pivotal question of the text, and it introduces the ultimate solution, which is the scientific method.
Okay.
The profound argument made in the sources is that science is not powerful because it's flawless, or because scientists are somehow superhuman entities immune to these cognitive traps.
Right, they're just people.
Science is powerful specifically because it expects, anticipates, and plans for the fact that human brains are flawed.
It's an entire philosophical system built on the foundational assumption that you are probably fooling yourself.
Yes. It actively seeks to challenge beliefs to get closer to reality. Think about our everyday lives, friend.
Mm-hmm.
The brain's default question is, how can I prove that I am right?
We relentlessly hunt for confirmation.
Always. But the scientific method demands that we ask a completely different, deeply unnatural question. What evidence would convince me that I am mistaken?
What evidence would convince me that I am mistaken? Man, that requires you to define the terms of your own defeat before you even begin.
It really does.
And as we discussed with the anterior cingulate cortex, doing that feels like intentionally walking into a trap that you know is going to cause you physical stress.
It requires immense psychological courage. All of human progress has relied on individuals willing to endure that discomfort and revise their understanding of the universe.
Wow.
The text actually brings up the philosophical concept of the blank slate, or tabula rasa, to clarify this point.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, for a long time, philosophers thought humans were born as blank slates, ready to absorb objective truth. But evolutionary biology proves the exact opposite.
We are definitely not blank slates.
Not at all. Our slates are pre-written with heavy, dense survival code that favors bias, fear, and fast assumptions.
Right, we come pre-installed with junk software that was great for avoiding lions, but is absolutely terrible for doing, like, particle physics.
Exactly. Scientific reasoning is not innate. No child is born with an instinct to control for confirmation bias or run a double-blind placebo test.
Obviously not.
It is a highly unnatural, artificial way of thinking that must be actively learned and aggressively maintained. But once installed, however, it acts as a mental immune system.
Okay, but let me play the ultimate devil's advocate here, drawing on the critique presented in the source text.
Go for it.
Scientists are not robots.
No, they're not.
They are human beings with human brains, which means they have the exact same anterior cingulate cortex as the rest of us.
They do.
They have massive egos, they have careers they spent decades building, and they have funding grants they need to protect.
Oh, absolutely.
So how do we know the scientific method isn't just another layer of bias disguised as objectivity?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it becomes clear why the method works, despite the deeply flawed humans operating it.
Okay.
Individual scientists are highly biased. They fall in love with their own hypotheses and ignore contradictory data all the time.
Right.
But the scientific method is specifically designed as an adversarial system to correct for individual bias over time.
Ah, because no single study or single researcher is ever considered the final definitive authority on reality.
Precisely. The system operates through replication, meaning other independent researchers who have absolutely no incentive to protect your ego have to be able to get the exact same results you did.
They have to prove your work.
And it operates through peer review, where other experts are actively incentivized to find the flaws in your logic.
Right.
It's a ruthless, continuous testing of ideas against observable reality. It isn't a perfect system, obviously, because humans are involved, but it is the most robust external immune system humanity has ever developed for overcoming the cognitive limitations of the individual brain.
It protects us from the illusion that we already understand things we've never truly examined.
Yes.
It's a learned defense mechanism against the invisible filters of our own biology.
Beautifully put.
So bringing all of this dense, incredibly vital material together, what is the ultimate takeaway from this deep dive?
The ultimate lesson distilled from these combined sources is a profound redefinition of what it means to be wise.
Okay.
We typically view wisdom as a state of perfect knowledge, right, an absence of error. But our biology destines us to make errors. We are literally built for it.
We can't avoid it.
No. Therefore, true wisdom is not the absence of error. It is the willingness to correct it.
The greatest danger is not being wrong, because being wrong is just the default human condition. The greatest danger is believing that you could never be wrong in the first place.
A mind that refuses to question itself eventually becomes a prisoner of its own certainty. But a curious mind, a mind actively employing that mental immune system, remains alive and free.
I love that.
It's free not from making mistakes, because that's biologically impossible, but free from the paralyzing fear of admitting them.
So as you go about your day-to-day, as you interact with breaking news or have a disagreement with your coworkers or even argue with your family, I want you to consider that transformative question. How do I know this is true? And what specific, tangible evidence would it actually take to change my mind?
And this raises an important question, something for you to mull over long after this deep dive ends.
Whoa, lay it on us.
We have spent this entire time exploring how your brain internally edits reality to keep you comfortable.
Right.
But look at the external world you've constructed around yourself. Look at your chosen social circles. Look at your daily routines. Look at the specific media ecosystems you choose to consume every single day. If your biology is already hardwired to aggressively avoid contradicting evidence, to what extent have you unconsciously designed your entire life to ensure that your anterior cingulate cortex never has to sound the alarm?
Wow. How much of your daily life is just a custom-built, perfectly insulated echo chamber designed to protect your prehistoric brain from the temporary pain of being wrong?
Exactly.
That is a truly haunting thought. So the next time you feel that absolute 100% certainty burning in your bones, take a second to ask yourself if you're actually seeing the objective truth or if you're just reacting to a shadow in the grass.